Well, yes, you can. In fact, I did show it in the other video, how to withdraw from it. But we're going to do it again real quick. So first thing you're going to want to do is go get the W-4V form. Check it out. So this is the W-4V, all right? You can just go to irs.gov and go get it, okay? And it's voluntary withholding request. Right? So people come up to me and tell me, "Oh, it's for unemployment and certain federal government and other payments. Give this form to your payer. Do not send to the IRS." Okay? So you could do this for anything. You know, people get psyched out because they see that and then they stop reading. Why'd you do that? You just finish reading the whole thing. They just start freaking out when they say that. But it says other payments, which was that? That could be anything. Okay. So it's real simple. You just fill this out, right? Put in your name, right? If you have an identification number, I want my federal income tax withheld from unemployment compensation at a rate of 10% each payment. My federal income tax withheld from my Social Security benefits, right? I want you to stop withholding federal income tax from my payments. There you go. It's right there. So this is the form to do it, okay? People talk about this other form that doesn't exist. I'm not going to even talk about it because people keep misleading people to use a form that's not a proper form. Just use the right forms. You can do this. All right. That's how you withdraw from the certificate, right? The W-4. Okay. It's really simple. That's as simple as it's going to get. You're not going to get any easier than that. Okay. But in the case of, let's say, somebody getting someone new, right, having to fill out a W-4, well, they tell you what to do on here, okay? How to fill this out so that way when you do, if you get a new job, well, how do I fill this out so that way they don't take taxes out? Well, that's a good question as well, right? So what you're going to do, I'm going to show you, it says right here, exempt from withholding. You may claim exemption from withholding for 2025 if you meet both the following conditions. You have no federal income tax liability in 2024, and you expect to have no federal income tax liability in 2025. You had no federal income tax liability in 2024. Your total taxes on line 24, right, yada, 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 is zero or less than the sums of those lines there on the 1040. If you're not required to file a return because your income is below the filing threshold, right? So if you didn't have to file, you can just write all that stuff in there. But here's the thing. I know there's a bunch of people who are going to say, well, that doesn't apply to me because I had a tax liability. Right. So this is the important thing. You see, this is where doing a revocation of election becomes really important, because what you have to do is you have to revoke your election to pay taxes. Once you do that, now you don't have to pay taxes anymore, and you won't have a tax liability because you've contracted in. You have to contract out, but it's basically just a letter saying that you're no longer going to be part of that system. But you do have to explain a few things to them so that way they know that you know what you're talking about. You're not just like one of these diehard patriots who's more like being a bull in a china cabinet and running amok rather than someone who actually knows what they're talking about. See, that's the big problem, is that I see a lot of people coming on TikTok saying things and they don't know what they're talking about, so they say all kinds of crazy stuff. Or what they do is they kind of they become the bull in the china cabinet. They're just trying to bust through everything, but in reality, all they're doing is making things worse, and they're upsetting agencies, right? The agencies all like to be talked to a certain way, so you have to talk to them a certain way because they're very delicate creatures. Okay, they have egos that need to be stroked. Okay, they have imagined authority that they think that they believe that they have. Okay, I think they're in charge. Okay, look at what some of the members of Congress have said in the past. We're the ones in charge now, so you shut up. And actually, you're not in charge. You are a public servant. All of these people are supposed to be public servants, all right? But they don't act like servants, do they? No, they act like they're your boss. And they're not. You are their boss. Remember the election, right? You get to choose, right? Anyway, but the election thing is a whole other thing I didn't want to get into. But that's how you would withdraw from such certificate, would be doing that. But once you do the revocation of election now you're exempt from withholding. Now this applies. Right? So now this will apply because you won't have a federal income tax liability in 2025. So what does it say here? It says write exempt on Form W-4 in the space below step 4C. I mean, they tell you how to do it right on the certificate. 4C, exempt. That's pretty simple, isn't it? So, these things can be very complex, but in reality, they're very simple, all right? And if you ever come across someone who is making things very complex in this entire movement, okay, just know that they don't actually understand it. And they're like, whoa, it's very complicated, blah, 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 this, and blah, 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 blah. And it's not. Everything's relatively simple. And if they can't explain it in a simple way, they don't really know it well enough. Okay? And that's what it comes down to, And I'm not pointing anybody out because I know someone's going to be like, oh, you're talking trash about this dude. I have no one particular in mind. Okay? I'm just saying, like, in general, when people make things more complex, it's because they themselves don't understand it and they use complexities to hide their own misunderstanding. Okay? That's what they're doing. So that way other people will be like, well, I'm just so confused. I don't know how to ask any questions, right? And I always ask people before I leave any of the lives I do, right? I say, anyone have any other questions? Any other questions? I always ask that, right? It's it's a habit of mine to do that. But the thing is that I don't like leaving any stone unturned or anything like that. But I mean, that's pretty much it. But again, if you got any questions, go comment them below, and I'll see what I can do to sort those out.